Alrighty, hello there, everyone. We are here talking about Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Today it is myself, Silentwisher, and DNA, which is a community member and administrator. Um,
Hello.
we both watched the announcement event, or whatever we want to call it. It was about 30 minutes long, not including the after Q&A session. Um, but we have a whole lot of stuff to talk about, so let's go ahead and jump right into it, and I'll let you start off, DNA.
Yeah, so pretty much I was present for the actual Twitch stream slash YouTube slash whatever other platform, but they're on Twitch mainly. The game's Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which is, I am assuming, a sequel to Wildlands, which was in the beginning a little slow, but it became largely popular, especially with the additional content that kept releasing and the fact that it's quite accessible. The gameplay reveal itself. And to no surprise, Ubisoft, the gameplay reveal that they have uploaded and shown off is clearly a well-baked cake with a nice extra layer of frosting. Um,
And what does that
yeah,
mean for people that
it means, for people who don't realize what I mean by that, it means that the gameplay isn't really gameplay. It's their artistic vision. It's been rendered. It's been put together, and it's not a real in-time person playing the game. It's pretty much been planned. It's been rendered. It's been put to a video screen, and they call it gameplay.
yeah,
In
which
other
is
words,
irritating because it wasn't gameplay.
well, it's not the original Wildlands reveal. Gameplay was again the same thing.
Yeah.
So for Ubisoft, I'm not surprised anymore. It's kind of the trend, but we're kind of going off topic here. Um, for the reveal itself, the shooting, obviously, since it was a baked cake, it wasn't really that realistic. The shooting would be before it, this and that, blah blah. Let's get more on track here. So one of the bigger pushes they're having is that there's an actor, Jon Bernthal, and he's actually the main antagonist. Who, if you played Wildlands, there is a free DLC for anyone who owns the game called Operation Oracle, which actually has his character as the main contact for the mission itself. In which if you decide to pick up Wildlands before Breakpoint, you can play the mission and then get a nice little prologue to what Breakpoint is really about. Which I'm excited that they did that because it allows a lot of people to kind of get a foot in the door for what is coming their way. There's also a lot of hidden Easter egg lore behind what the Skell Corporation really is, and the Skell Corporation, for people who also don't know about, is kind of like the main victim of what's happening in Breakpoint. But we'll get onto that later in the video, most likely. Um, Generally speaking, the reveal showed off gameplay along the lines of like gun mechanics to vehicles to weather to environment to weapons to soldier types to drone types. And then they wrapped it up with a kind of like a discussion. It was a pre-recorded interview, pretty much, of some of their context information source people that are behind the game talking about this is what you do and this is what we're trying to do. And then they wrapped up with a reveal trailer, which was a CGI rendering, which is it looks really nice and pretty because the CGI like the movies. And then they wrapped up with a community discussion from Twitch, which, as usual, the internet was asking, "Were there gonna be a battle royale?" And the developer straight out said, "No, not at this time. We're not
Good.
thinking about that at all." Which is like, I don't really care because I've not been a fan of battle royale in the first place.
Yep. Same here. Same
So
here.
that's generally the whole gameplay reveal overview. But we do have more points to cover with the specifics of the gameplay that was shown off. The One of the things I had wished Wildlands did better was AI cooperation, how they interact with each other, interact with the player. From what I've seen in the gameplay reveal and what the discussions have shown, any enemies and AI as well as the drones have been worked a lot on. They've improved it. So instead of shooting someone in the back and you alerting only like a quarter of whatever outpost it is, they actually start coordinating source. They coordinate with each other instead of being like a one-man army versus you. They also have a lot of drones, in which the drones, again, I think are going to be attached to the units as well. There's flying drones, there's tanks, which kind of act like mini bosses. There's also buggy style drones. I think Silent can comment on whole tank sort of drones because he's more familiar with the Division 2's drones they have in the game.
Yeah, and for people that haven't seen the trailer or they're just listening to this and not watching the videos that may or may not be accompanying it, this game is basically what I would compare it to is if Facebook made drones, and they weren't Facebook, they made drones, and they were allowed to keep growing, and shit hit the fan. And that's basically what this game is. I don't know, I feel like Facebook is too big for its own good, and it seems like it's a similar situation. They had a company having, all these drones that improve your life and this and that, and then of course they were militarized and then hacked and whatnot, and now it's a shit show. But in regards to just the different kinds of drones, they have your typical, like, I don't know how to compare them because I don't remember what they're called, but in the Division 2 there's little drones that you can have as an ability that just kind of hover around you and shoot at your enemies and stuff, or you can command them to go and attack your enemies as well. There's those, the lightweight little tiny things, similar to real life drones, consumer drones, that is. And then they have the bigger ones that, are carrying bigger weapons or bombs or surveillance equipment. And you see a couple of those in the trailer, I guess we can call it, or the show that they showed. They had the big, I want to call them pave hawks, but I'm sure that's wrong. But basically the drones that fly way up in the air and are used for like surveillance and spotting and stuff. You see that in the video. You see the lower level combat ones, and then towards the later end of the whole show, you do see buggy style drones. So, and I don't know how to describe how big they are, but if you've ever done like off-roading in real life, basically like a dune buggy size, there's drones of that caliber. And if I remember correctly, it shows some of the ghosts, which we'll talk about, and one of those buggies following them around. So there's those, and then there's tank drones, which the Division 2, as far as I know, doesn't have yet. But when they were talking about the raids in the later part of the video, they showed a huge, like, automated aircraft of some sort, basically a cargo transport, fly down and then drop off this giant metallic beast. And it's the typical, like, triangle, futuristic looking type tank, and then all the weapons.
It reminds me of PlanetSide 2 tanks.
Yes,
honestly.
like
that square shape,
like the Terran Republic main battle tank. But the weapons unfold from it, and in their epic, like, oh crap, type of deal. But I'm sure that's not going to be the only type of boss or whatever. But they seem to have teased that as if it was going to be one. But
I mean,
just
they have a lot to pull from the gameplay mechanics of the Division 2, especially with the drones being added in there. From a lot of so in the interview, they also stated that Breakpoint is, at least the community director stated this, that the Breakpoint is the information that they've been taking over the last few years from Wildlands to Division 2 to apply into the new Ghost Recon game, because people are asking for this, asking for that. And so they're learning. They took a lot of notes from the Division 2 drones, as well as just community feedback in general. And they've been saying that Breakpoint is what the culmination of what they've been taking in and listening and putting onto the next Ghost Recon title.
Right.
Pretty much segueing into the next subject here from the whole enemy AI as well as drones is the environment. From what I remember, when I'm still playing Wildlands right now, actually. Wildlands, it looks pretty, but after like a couple hours, let's say this 25, 30 hours, the game kind of looks all the same. There's not a lot of fidelity in it. Like you could turn them on, but the Wildlands is notorious for just crashing randomly for some unknown reason, no error codes. The environment, as well, we're talking about environment, we're talking about graphics pretty much. The environment of Breakpoint, you have almost every single type of biome. You have snow, which is mountains as well. You have the jungles, you have forests under that, you have deserts, you have beaches, and I like to say lots of mud, because you can't be on an island without mud, because mud is mud and gets everywhere. As I saw in the quote unquote baked cake gameplay, I do see dynamic weather effects. So like a lot of the trees and everything react dynamically to wind and rain, versus in Wildlands they all just kind of shook all the time. Like they're just doing this shimmy shake all day, every day. Walk into a jungle, be like, shimmy shake, shimmy shake. Go to the mountains, shimmy shake, shimmy shake. So that's a nice little touch. They looks like they have a lot more environment interaction. So like when bullets actually hit trees, they do leave the scuffs and the puffs of wood fractures. But I will take this.
That.
It's very small. It's because I've been scrubbing through the video.
Fair enough.
The water does have reflections as well. It looks way more realistic. And again, with the graphics of this reveal, I will say, as a reminder, take it with a grain of salt, because Ubisoft's track record, unfortunately, is that they present something that looks really polished and really nice, and then when the game comes out, it kind of looks kind of boring.
Yeah.
But cross your fingers, maybe they'll delete it, because if you look at Assassin's Creed Odyssey, that game, darn pretty. So, moving on from the graphics into...
Well, hold on. You forgot the volcano.
Hold on.
You forgot the volcano.
Oh, well, that's my secret ace card up my sleeve. There's supposed to be a volcano, all right, an active volcano, which I'm gonna kind of jump ahead a little bit. The active volcano is related to the first ever raid in a Ghost Recon game. Now, if you're familiar with, now, Silentwisher over here is the old school WoW raid guy. So I'm going to let him explain the whole raid thing, and if he misses anything, I'll jump in there.
Well, I mean, I can give you some information regarding how raids typically work in like MMOs and stuff, and I know this is not an MMO, so I don't really know how they're going to do this, because it's based off of 4 players. So, however,
tell us what a raid is normally, and I'll apply it.
So
in the Wildlands sense,
technically raids, they'll have the little intro sequence where you're like breaking into like the boss's quarters, and you have to deal with all the like the little peons and stuff or whatever, and then eventually you'll come across one or more bosses, and unlike typical enemies, they'll have like special abilities. Like, let's just make something up. Let's say this tank that we saw in the trailer is a boss. So that tank could have some sort of weird active defense system that deflects all your rounds for 60 seconds, but during that time it's weak on the back end of the turret, for example. But then if you get too close, it'll shoot a barrage of rockets. I mean, it's basically a very unique enemy that has a lot of different gameplay mechanics put into one. Sorry about that. Anyways, a lot of different gameplay mechanics put into one in order to make it a challenge, unlike the normal gameplay. And usually a raid versus, there's no dungeons in this game, but for the sake of conversation, a raid is the highest of everything, dungeons versus normal gameplay. So usually they reward you with higher class stuff in exchange for your effort and time. So like I said, I don't know how they're going to pull that off with 4 players, but I'm definitely excited to figure out what that's going to be.
On top of that too, I don't think Ghost Recon is going to be a loot shooter. Unlike the Division, where they could pull out or Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the higher level bosses you beat, the better loot you'll get, quote unquote, for a drop. Ghost Recon Breakpoint, I don't know how they're gonna do it. They'll be talking again at E3 and further down the road, probably revealing more details about what the raid will be. But Silent pretty much nailed every nail on the head there for that one, because we just don't know. They haven't really revealed anything more beyond the fact that there's a raid. Here's a tank. Ooh, at the volcano. I think we covered the raids. Next up in the gameplay, this got me. So Wildlands. You can play solo, you can play co-op, you could also play with 3 other AI companions. The change now is at Breakpoint there is no AI companion, and that was a little weird for me because, I mean, it is so. Breakpoint is actually a militaristic term. It's actually describing when a unit cannot operate or a soldier cannot operate because he's been broken, pretty much. What is his breakpoint? So, Ghost Recon Breakpoint is supposed to be, you could play solo or you could play with 4 other players or 3 other players in co-op. So 4-player co-op or solo. You don't have AI companions, which is kind of, I mean, if you like playing by yourself, all the more power to you, but I like the co-op.
Yeah, I based off of my experience with Wildlands, I pretty much would rather not the AI be there. Like, more often than not, they would just cause problems. So the fact that they're just not even giving you the option, I don't really see a problem with that. But that's just my 2 cents on that.
I mean, well, I've been playing solo just because of scheduling issues here, and I don't really have a lot of trouble with the AI because the developers, the Ubisoft, actually did something for gameplay reason for the gameplay is that they made the AI not able to be spotted. I've had my AI companions stand in the middle of the road, and there's an enemy walking down the side, just going, but he doesn't see him. And it's a gameplay mechanic choice because we've all played some games that are like escort missions, right? It's like, oh, I have to not. Come on, take my hand. Come on, over here. Let's go. And so the Ubisoft made the AI not able to be seen because, that's a lot of AI mapping. That's a lot of AI figuring out where to go. Let's just have the AI companions not be seen because they'd always be seen because you're the one sneaking. They're not.
Right.
So, but I do like the fact that they also just took them out because they added some other parameters that you can play Wildlands solo if you really wanted. But Wildlands does suffer from the fact that all the AI will come after you because they just know where you are.
Something that we didn't write down here to talk about is they did point out, and they didn't specify whether this was only available during 4-player co-op or not, but I'm assuming not, because in the video they showed the character selecting a target, but also deploying like 3 drones to, I'm assuming, also take out those 3 other targets, because I'm assuming those little tiny drones have some sort of weapon on them. So there's still like a sync shot type feature, but it's used with drones instead of bullets, I guess.
That's correct. No, it's in the reveal. There's the drones you can deploy and they sync shot people for you.
Right, which is cool. I think that's a really cool feature because obviously you wouldn't be able to use that feature since they got rid of the AI if you were by yourself. But since that seems to be sort of like a gadget of some sort, then you can still pull that off.
That must have been their replacement. It's like, let's get rid of the AI. Oh, drones. There you go.
Yeah, let's get rid of normal walk-around AI and put drone AI.
Apparently drones are becoming the norm. Like, oh, drones. Why are we at war again? Drones. Oh.
Yeah, I mean,
moving down the list. One thing that made me just go like, wow, is it's small, but it's nice. You can camouflage yourself in the mud. Now, I don't know if they did mention that you can camouflage yourself in the snow or the shrubbery, but let's say you're prone in the mud, you can hit whatever key it will be down the road, and your character will cover himself in mud, and he'll sit there hiding, like we're talking Arnold Schwarzenegger style.
Yeah.
And you can, you'll be hidden. I don't know how well hidden, but you'll be hidden regardless. And I was like, wow. Because another thing I noticed is that when you're crawling through the mud, it does do it does do the not tessellation. It's when you crawl through the mud and it parts, and that was a nice little attention to detail there. I don't know.
Deformation is, I think, what you're looking for.
Yeah. Deformation. Of course, the texture's stretchy, but it's a gameplay review.
Yeah,
All on
well,
a grain of salt. Grain of salt. Another interesting fact is that now, instead of Wildlands being cartel members where they, beam rifle you across the outpost with dual SMGs running and hopping, these guys your enemies are actually trained ghosts who had gone rogue. They can either be ghosts, they can either be any branch of the military that have gone rogue, and they use cover, they communicate, they fire at you. They're not freaking running around with SMGs like Wildlands. That was a nice addition. I like the change in that direction. I'm assuming there's going to be like upper level ghosts below the highest guy, for example, because I don't know what a Ghost Recon game with this sort of setup would be without that. As we know from last Wildlands, because pretty much Breakpoint is a bigger version of Wildlands. It's the gunsmith is going to be there, so there's a lot of customization with your gun. There's a lot of customization with your character. One of the Twitch people did ask the developers, asking about how in-depth the customization was, and he said pretty much along the lines of, we took what Wildlands was and we made it more. We've expanded the customization. Now, of course, that doesn't tell us what, but he says it's been expanded, so it's probably going to be more customization in general. Maybe more than just 3 types of beards. No beard, short beard, big beard.
Yeah.
Another cool thing I saw in the trailer or the gameplay reveal is that there's breaching kits, like fence breaching. We're talking about like little butane torch sort of things. Now, when he brought up his radio wheel to pull up this gadget, it had 1. So I'm guessing there's some sort of crafting system, like gathering materials to make these gadgets. Instead of just going to an ammo box, you'd be like, let me pick this up. I'm refilled. Let's go.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I didn't even think about it that way, but yeah, that would make sense. And it looked like there was, I don't know, like 4 total, maybe 5 total gadgets, not just that. So curious what those other ones are going to be as well. Actually, we do know what one of them is, and it's the that like EMP smoke grenade type deal when they were
Otherwise, she
encountering...
slaps the ground and goes,
yeah.
That one.
Yeah, I kind of.
I was wondering why she did that. Like, slide smoke.
Yeah, I kind of giggled a little bit. It reminded me of I don't know. It felt very not Borderlands, but what's that Blizzard game that everybody plays?
Destiny.
Nope, the other one.
No.
The
Overwatch.
Overwatch. It felt very Overwatch-like to me. I don't know why it just did, but or maybe even Apex. I got kind of an Apex vibe from that.
But, God, slide boosters.
But yeah, no, that breaching kit thing for the fence is awesome, because in Wildlands there were so many fences in that game, and you're just like, oh, this would be nice to go through, but I have to go through the freaking front door,
Infiltrate the base. There's no holes except the front gate. Well, okay.
Yeah.
That makes me curious if there's going to be other types of breaching kits. I honestly don't think there's going to be. I would like to believe there's going to be other types of breaching, but I don't think Ubisoft wants to break into the whole destructive world realm of things. So maybe that will just be a tactical kit rather than like, let's blow a wall here. Hello. Down the road again, I did notice cover systems. Now they did in the trailer, the reveal, it looks more polished, but it is a baked cake, so we won't see actual gameplay until later down the road. The cover system is much like Wildlands, where your character will, depending on where you're looking, will what's the word? It's adaptive cover is what they called it, where if I'm crouched and I'm crouched by myself, close to a wall but not against it, my character will just crouch. If I move to the wall, my character will use the wall as cover, and if I look over the wall, I can, shoulder up the gun to aim, and he'll peek over while I'm doing it and release it. So it's adaptive cover. So if I go to a short wall, I'll be there. If it's a tall wall, I'll stand up. I'll vault over, etc. That's in the trailer, except you actually take cover with the trees this time around. And that's a nice addition, because Wildlands didn't have it, even though the whole world was full of trees, but you couldn't take cover on trees and rocks.
Right.
Next up, glorious be to the holy rocket launcher. The one biggest thing I thought would be in Wildlands would be a rocket launcher. And how many times would I love to have a rocket launcher when that APC comes rolling around the corner? All the time. And they finally added the rocket launcher. Whoop-de-doo. I can finally shoot things with a rocket launcher in Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Now, Silent can add in on this. There are heavies in Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I believe they look just like the ones from the Division 2, design-wise. Lugging around a freaking minigun.
I mean, they're similar. I mean, from what I've experienced in the Division 2, each kind of, well, not each, but they tend to have a singular model and the weapons kind of vary, and that's about it. But yeah, they look very Division 2 like. And in the trailer, they made them seem all like scary and intense because they just the way that they like cut up the scenes and stuff with them in it. And then when it came down to combat, they like shoot at their knees and then they just fall over, and it's like, oh, okay, so are they actually that scary or not? I don't really know, but they're there, I guess. They carry miniguns, so whatever.
They used to be adventurers like you, but they took a bullet to the knee. Yeah, that was uncalled for. So, next level up, stamina. Wildlands didn't really have a stamina bar. It was kind of like, how much longer can I run this time around? You could sprint up a freaking mountain in Wildlands. If you're maxed out with your stamina, you could sprint up a mountain, no cost. You could sprint down a mountain, no cost. So with Breakpoint, they do have a stamina bar. Now, this stamina bar it includes how well you can shoot, how stable you are, how much you can sprint. It actually does go hand in hand with the terrain, because now there's steep inclines in this island of Breakpoint, and which when you're sliding down the hill, it takes stamina. And if your stamina runs out and you're still sliding down this hill, you're going to start tumbling down the hill. And if there's some rocks, well, that sucks. You're still going to tumble through it. That stamina also comes in part with how fast you can walk away. That was actually really nice to see, that stamina bar, because now pretty much with all these newer elements of how realistic it's becoming, I feel like Ghost Recon is starting to lean back into the original roots of what Ghost Recon was, where it was pretty unforgiving. It was a very realistic shooter, at least for being a game, at least. But we got carried away in the arcade zone, but now it's coming back to the more realistic. This segues right into something that I found very interesting, that Silent will add his thoughts in on, are injury types.
Yeah, that I'm a little concerned about, but it should make the game a lot more challenging. Do you want to start with that, or?
Yeah, I'll start with that. Injury types. You got like, oh, I was hit. And then you have the more, I've been hit. No. Injury types. You got like minor. I'm guessing they didn't really cover it too deep, but pretty much the general idea is that there's light injuries where you getting shot a little bit here and there. It's a few bullets. And then there's the more major injuries. So like, let's say you get we don't know if it's like specific to who shoots you from where, or whether it's just the amount of damage you take. If you get a major injury to your arm, you can't shoulder up the weapon to shoot anymore.
Right.
If it's a two-handed gun, you have to shoot from the hip, and it is in the reveal trailer. I don't know about pistols, if it's the same deal. If you sustain a certain injury to your leg, your guy will be like, dead weight, here we go. Let me drag this through the mud. Yeah. You have to drag your leg, and that's pretty cool. But if you're playing solo and you're by yourself, I foresee a lot of dying coming our way because you have to find cover and you have to use your bandages and your morphine or pull the bullet out, depends on whatever happens.
Yeah, it's potentially going to be a really cool system or a real not so cool system.
A really annoying system.
Yeah, and who knows, they might bail on it depending on how, like, beta participants,
Mm-hmm.
you never know.
Yeah, that's another thing about the grain of salt. A lot of this could be changed because it just didn't work as a gameplay mechanic. Maybe it just made it not fun anymore.
Right.
Those injuries do also really affect how much stamina you have. If you've got a major injury to your leg, your stamina is going to be super tiny. And it shows it in the reveal trailer as he's trying to do things. And he's like, I'm crippled. What else?
You said there was a cover system or some sort.
Yeah, I covered that.
Here. Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Brain fart. I know you didn't cover this. If you did, I don't care. I'm talking about it again. The game does seem to stress stealth. Obviously you could do whatever you want, but you're gonna be better off if you're stealthy. And one of the things that Wildlands didn't really care to do or anything, they didn't allow you to drag bodies around or drag your teammate out of danger in order to remain stealthy, and that's gonna be a thing. You could totally take a dude out and then go like stuff his body in a closet or something, so that way a patrol doesn't find it and then set off the base alarms, and then you're really screwed. So that's a cool feature. I think they've done that in other games. Maybe I don't know if it was specifically Ubisoft that did that. Okay,
it's Splinter Cell mainly.
So they're kind of bringing that back into the modern age, which is cool because there's been so many games I've played where I'm like, okay, guys, we got to just like role play that they don't see the body, which is stupid, but it is what it is, I guess.
Or you have to have someone camp the body in case anyone comes over to it. You have to shoot them.
Yeah, and then you have another body. So
in the same spot, you just gotta wait there.
Yeah.
Yeah, silence, right? You can move bodies. You can also pick up teammates So Wildlands, you get downed by a tank out in the open. I'm sorry, you're downed out in the open.
Yeah.
Breakpoint, you can actually pick up the guy. You can throw smoke. You pick up your teammate, and actually move them to a safer location to revive them.
Right. It's not just a straight up revive and then okay run. It's pick them up. Well, you could do either, I'm sure, but pick them up, drag them in behind a tree or something, and then apply whatever medical stuff needs to be done, and then they're revived. So
they also did not confirm whether you can apply your own bandages to said people, because once they revive you, and if you had sustained certain injuries, you would have to heal yourself more beyond that point.
Right. Yeah, I didn't think of that.
So maybe I'm guessing there will be a thing for that, because I don't know what this game would be without being able to apply your certain rare materials to your teammates.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead.
another thing of the gameplay. Wildlands was all mainly about outposts. Like you go to this rebel outpost and you'll refill your ammo and save your game. There's actually the new mechanic now, since you're behind enemy lines. They like to emphasize that a lot. If you ever look up their marketing, there's this thing called bivouac, they called it. What the heck's a bivouac? It's something I've never heard of, but apparently it's real. It's pretty much a small get-together. No, it's a small hangout. Yo, join my hangout. No, bivouac is like a small campsite, you could say. A small thing. It's like a mobile campsite where you gear up, you hold down for the night, and you like clean your gear and stuff so you can rest, you can prepare for the next mission, you can change the time of day, that sort of deal. Like what we used to do in the map system on Wildlands, you actually just do at the bivouac anywhere in the island itself, which is nice because now you don't have to gotta go to the outpost real quick, hang on, gotta find myself an ammo box.
And I wonder how that's gonna work. Like, is it like on a timer? You can only deploy it every so often, or I don't know. Only while you're not in combat. I don't know.
We won't know till they decide to tell us.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Or someone leaks the information.
Which is possible. Which is very possible.
Hopes and dreams with other notes.
Yeah. I think the obvious one is in the trailer they showed a buggy, which by the way, way too clean. Can we talk about that? It was way too clean. But anyways, hopefully the vehicle mechanics are nothing like Wildlands was. I'm hoping,
or improved.
I just hope they're better. And if God forbid there's aircraft in this game, I hope that's better too. Because flying in Wildlands is like flying a building through the air. It was just bad. It was terrible, frankly. So,
I mean, my biggest beef was when you're driving on pavement, like, let me turn. You're pretty much driving on ice.
Yeah. Yeah. Vehicles, they pretty much all had the same performance, with the exception of like maybe the motorcycle or something. But
That's
I mean,
true.
they all just they turned the same. They took forever to turn, and they would slide around and
Unnecessarily bouncing on rocks.
yeah, yeah,
Like, oh, you're high centered on this rock you weren't even supposed to be able to traverse in the first place.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, hopefully
more
that'll be
hopes.
fixed.
I am hope. I said this kind of earlier about the whole like dual wielding SMGs from across the outpost beam rifle style. I'm hoping the AI doesn't, freaking auto aimbot you like they do in the Wildlands. Wildlands is if you play in the hardest difficulty, my God, it's like I have a sniper rifle. I'm shooting this guy standing in the open who's hopping around like a little rabbit, dual wielding his Tech 9s that are shooting automatically, and he's hitting me in the face.
Yeah,
There's a problem with this mechanic here. You want a harder difficulty? Yes. Do I want a dumb aimbot? No. I'm hoping the AI is more fixed, which I have a lot of faith in them, because the Division 2 is a great example of like the AI being a little more not aimbotty when it comes to that sort of thing with Wildlands. Another thing I also forgot to mention is that there's not going to be bullet sponges, not like the Division. Of course, bosses are a different league. That's something separate. We're talking like mini people, hardcore mini bosses. They're not going to be bullet sponges. If you shoot a guy in the head, he's going to die.
which is good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Supposedly, more hopes and dreams. One thing I found really saddening, really frustrating about Wildlands is that it was a lot of copy paste formula. Where since the AI was programmed a certain way and there was always the same kind of enemies, and they always beamed rifled you, a lot of the altercations and incursions and scenarios you would get stuck in when it came to Wildlands were pretty much all the same. The only way to get out: call more rebel units, call mortar strike, tell all your AI teammates to
pretty much
open
useless.
fire.
Also,
that too. Sometimes they worked really well for some reason. I'm hoping to goodness that there's going to be a lot more variety here, which from what I've seen in the trailer, there's definitely already a lot more variety. Like I said, grain of salt. I hope they improve it. We already covered the gameplay mechanics, better AI. They did mention in the post event interview that there's going to be more narrative and cutscenes, which that was actually, as short as those were in Wildlands, the cutscenes were very interesting to watch, because you got to see some real darn detail, because you could customize your character, and that's what you're going to see in the cutscene. But those cutscenes were always so short. And then, there's all those pre-rendered artistic style things that weren't even having anything to do with your character. There's more cutscenes and there's more narrative, which I applaud, and I say my arms are open and everything. I'm like, I want some more narrative here, because that was one of the disconnects when it came to Wildlands. It just kind of felt empty. Like, yeah, there was the overall mission and these small little incursions here and there, but it just didn't feel very Like, it didn't allow me to attach to the characters very much. It didn't allow me to immerse myself, except the fact that it's an open world shooter.
Yeah, yeah. I like when games have a lot of like gameplay, but also have a lot of story. But it at the same time, it has to be a balance. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, true.
there is a point where it becomes too much story. You know, it's like, well, maybe
I didn't ask for this.
yeah. So hopefully they strike the right balance there. Like so far, the Division 2, for example, there's a lot of there's not enough story, and there's a whole lot of you need to do everything, and I'm like, I don't wanna. So, you know,
I'm not the only guy that can point and pull the trigger.
yeah, yeah. So
I mean, if they're coming off the Assassin's Creed Odyssey boat, I think they're actually. I feel like they're pulling a lot of influence from that sort of in world design. Yet again, I could be talking out my ass or something. So pretty much to wrap up this whole thing, the release date for this game is October 4th,
which
2019. If you haven't figured
you
that
know,
out,
we'll see about that. That's 5 months away. So
delay it because all they showed us was like alpha gameplay reveal, which was baked.
yeah. So
It was,
I mean,
cooked in my easy bake oven.
they are a pretty big company, but at the same time, only 5 months. We'll see. We'll see. So
I mean, they already had the whole base mechanic already from Wildlands since release.
that's true, and that is
change.
kind of a concern, though. Is like I wonder, is it using the same engine as Wildlands? Because if it is, that could cause some problems.
Well, I'm assuming it is, but I could be wrong because this engine looks like the one from Odyssey, and not the one from the Division.
Oh, okay.
But final thoughts too on that. Let's hope to God that Breakpoint is not as unstable as Wildlands was at launch.
Right. Ugh.
Crash every 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You want windowed full screen? Crash, crash, crash. No error code.
Yeah. Why is it so hard to have a game work in windowed borderless, for example, for me?
Or full screen. It still crashes with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It's something. I don't know. I don't know why Ubisoft has this issue. I mean, other games have it, but like I feel like Ubisoft is the one that has the biggest prominent issue of random crashes with no error code.
Yep, I agree. I completely agree. Siege
October 4th.
Siege does it.
2019. So. Yes, Siege. We're not talking about that. This game is going to be more revealed at E3 coming in the summer. So more information then. There's also, and I think there's another one before the release date. Actually, a question for you, Silent. Do you think they'll delay it?
Delay this game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think 5 months is enough to get what they're showing off done, frankly, unless the footage that they showed was something that they captured 5 months ago and 5 months from now they will be ready. I don't know, because they didn't say when they captured that footage or whatever. So I'm just gonna lean on yes, they're gonna delay it. By how long?
As much as I don't want it to be delayed,
2 or 3 months, I would imagine.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, as much as I don't want it to be delayed, it's probably gonna be delayed. Or Ubisoft's gonna do what Ubisoft does and release it anyway, and be like, "We're working on it. Please be patient."
I could see them delaying it till December and making it a December release for Christmas or the holidays, whatever.
But then they're getting into like the other competitors' territory.
Yeah. Well, depending on how ballsy they're feeling,
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to talk about there. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to talk about once we have more information. I'm hoping E3 actually provides us with more information. It's not just some,
They were saying that the E3 might be more covering the PvP aspect.
Oh,
but
well,
they could always change their minds.
We might talk about that. To be honest, I don't really care about that, but
it's been what, 2-3, almost 3 years with Wildlands being out, and the PvP came out a year later. Have I touched it? No.
Yeah. Not much of a PvP guy. in pretty much any game, with the exception of games where that's the only option, like Siege. So, you know.
What do you mean you don't want to play the situations over and over and over?
No, dude, I have trouble with the situations versus the multiplayer.
It's called aimbot. That's why.
Wow. Yeah, true.
AI. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'll see you through a wall. I'll shoot you through a wall.
Very true. Well, yeah, I guess that's where we're gonna leave it. Unless you have something else to add, I think that's pretty much the show for now.
That's the show. Thanks for watching.
Alrighty, guys, you know what to do. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and all that fun jazz. And we'll see you guys in the next one.